Welcome to the Bible Made Clear. So today I'm going to run through some evidences for creation against evolution. And the reason that I'm doing this is because Herb and I have been going through kind of a interview process, back and forth discussion on creation and evolution. And I figured I'd put some of these issues down, try to summarize them for you. And so let's jump right in. I don't think I'll get this all done in one video, and I won't stretch it out to be real long. So if you do like the channel, please hit like or subscribe. I'm not monetized, so it's not like I'm uh, doing it for that reason, but just so that more folks could see it. So first of all, as we go through here, let's look at the outline. We're going to look at DNA, cell structure design, atomic structure design. I think a lot of times we skip over that. Abiogenesis is impossible uh, apart from God. Homology is evidence really against evolution. It doesn't support it. The fossil record is evidence against evolution, and that's even made by evolutionists themselves, that case. Variation and modification is evidence against evolution because it only happens within species. The population of humans and experiments trying to prove evolution, they end up disproving it. So as we jump in, first of all, I mean, this is DNA. DNA is highly organized. I want you to understand that DNA is um, the code is axiomatic of a language. You have to have a language to have a code. For example, if I were to get up at a chalkboard and write SOS, those of you who are English speaking and know the English language, and if I asked you what does that mean, um, people would say, save our ship, save our souls, or distress. In other words, I need help. But how do you know that? Because that's not what it says. And so it's a code. The code is axiomatic of something else. It means distress. But the language has to determine that in order for you to then have a code. That's what DNA is. DNA is underwritten by a language. It's not um, uh, put together haphazardly or um, just by chance. It somehow evolved to that measure of complexity and everything else. But either way, um, let's listen to Frank Turek. He does a good job in going through all the pieces on this. So let's hear him.
Not only is the universe amazing, but so are you. You know what this is? This is a one-celled amoeba. This is the amoeba that the Darwinists say we all evolved from. You heard of the theory of macroevolution? From the goo to you via the zoo? This is the goo. Or from the infantile to the reptile to the crocodile to the gentile? This is the infantile. Now, in Darwin's day, that amoeba was thought to be a very simple, simplistic little blob of protoplasm. Wasn't anything too complicated. Maybe it could have come together by natural forces. Today we know otherwise. How do we know otherwise? Well, in order for me to explain it to you, let me take you to your breakfast table. How many people in here like alphabet cereal? You like alphabet cereal? Let's suppose you're a kid. You want to have a bowl of alphabet cereal? You come downstairs one morning to have a bowl of alphabet cereal. You get to the kitchen. You see the alphabet cereal's knocked over and on the placemat, the letter spelled, take out the garbage. Mom. What are you going to assume? The cat knocked the box over? Earthquake shook the house? No, you're going to say that's intelligent design from an intelligent being. Mom. Right? Or let's suppose you're laying out on the beach one day and you look up in the clouds and you see drink Coke. What do you assume? Unusual cloud formation? Wind coming from the north? Oh, it's cloud evolution. No, you immediately go, I don't see a skywriter up there, but there had to be one. Why? Because that's intelligent design from an intelligent being. Natural laws don't make messages like that. Well, natural laws don't make messages like that, and I hate to tell our evolutionist friends this, but they don't make messages like DNA equal either. DNA is a four-letter genetic alphabet that every living thing has. You have DNA, I have DNA, a banana has DNA. And DNA can communicate information much like the English alphabet can communicate information. It only has 4 letters. The English alphabet has 26, but it can communicate information. And it communicates an incredible amount of information. It communicates information just like take out the garbage mom. But it's a lot more complicated than that. The question is, how much information in DNA is in a one-celled amoeba? What I'm about to tell you is not from a Christian. What I'm about to tell you is from Richard Dawkins, one of the most vociferous, ardent evolutionists out there, the man who wrote The God Delusion. Well, in his previous book, The Blind Watchmaker, Richard Dawkins admits that the amount of information in a simple amoeba, so-called simple, is about equivalent to 1,000 complete sets of Encyclopedia Britannica. 1,000 complete sets of Encyclopedia Britannica. I don't have enough faith to believe that that resulted by natural law. I mean, to believe that that resulted by natural law is like believing that the Library of Congress resulted from an explosion in a printing shop. I don't have enough faith to believe that. It takes more faith to be an atheist than to be a Christian. The first life requires an intelligent cause, and all subsequent life requires an intelligent cause, too. I don't have enough time to get into how incredible you are. You know how many cells you have in your little toe, for example? Give you a visual. Just look at your little toe, ladies. Your little itty-bitty toe. You know how many cells are in there? The number of cells in your little toe are about equivalent to a house, say a 3,000 square foot house, filled from floor to ceiling with little baby peas. Each pea representing a cell. You know how much information is in each cell? 25,200-page books in every cell. I don't have enough faith that that resulted by natural law.
So let's now move on to another video. I think that'll be very enlightening.
If simple water molecules that form ice crystals exhibit magnificent structure, consider the design ingenuity behind large, complex molecules, such as DNA. DNA contains the blueprint for all life and is by far the densest information storage mechanism known in the universe. For example, the amount of information contained in a pinhead volume of DNA would fill a stack of books 500 times higher than from here to the moon. The program code and design of such an incredible system indicates a supremely intelligent designer.
The evidence to me that just cries out that there's a God is the study of DNA. DNA is a very powerful, massive information storage system. In fact, DNA that makes up our genes actually is like books of information that's read by a language system. It's absolutely phenomenal. And scientists know today that languages, a code, only come from an intelligence, and information only comes from information. Nobody's ever seen matter by itself give rise to a code. Nobody's ever seen matter by itself give rise to information. And as you look at DNA, it actually cries out, in the beginning, God created the universe.
We all begin as a single cell the size of a period at the end of a sentence. How does that cell know how to build a body with 100 trillion cells in it, thousands of different kinds, and each one of them is so complex, nanochemical machinery beyond our comprehension how it works, and encoded is the instruction manual. It's the manufacturer's manual how to build and operate every part of this incredible body made up of 100 trillion cells.
Furthermore, DNA is a three-dimensional molecule that is self-replicating. Each molecule is able to make an identical copy quickly and efficiently. The Lord has even programmed DNA to detect and correct replication errors. These sophisticated capabilities far exceed man's means.
God has created the DNA molecule in such a way that it is self-correcting. There are special proteins called enzymes that go up and down the DNA molecule looking for and making repairs on a minute-by-minute, second-by-second basis. God created us with a DNA code that actually has what we call editase or editorial type enzymes. Just as an editor reads a newspaper or a book looking for mistakes, so God has created special enzymes that go up and down our DNA molecule, repairing the mistakes in ways that are unbelievably complex.
There are many examples in creation of things that demonstrate the biblical God. One would be in our very DNA. Our DNA has information in it. And there is a whole field of scientific study called information science, which studies how information originates, how it's transmitted, and so on. And one of the laws of information science says that information never originates by itself in matter, never spontaneously comes about. Anytime we trace the copying of information back to its source, it always comes back to a mind. And since we have creative information in DNA, that tells me that DNA comes from intelligence. It's not something that could possibly come about through millions of years of mutations and natural selection. That just won't work.
Yet even the DNA molecule is simple compared to cells. All life consists of cells, and each cell functions as a miniature city. When we consider that a human body consists of trillions of cells working together as one unit, we should be in humble awe of our Creator's intimate care and perfect wisdom.
Amazing. And I think that Jason Lyle, who was one of the um, scientists when he was talking about information being translated. Look, there's too much information. Information can only come from a mind, and messaging. Uh, it's just this stuff doesn't just randomly appear. If you believe that it does, you have a lot more faith than I do, and certainly, like Torque says, you have to have more faith to be an atheist. Now, when we get into cell structure and design, there's a great book by Stephen Myers called Signature of the Cell, which I know he just updated it, but if you're interested in really digging in, however, for our brief analysis, cells are complex and show design. They don't show randomness at all. It just can't be denied. Um, it also can't be developed in an evolutionary model. There's just, I I don't think people realize when they just say, "We'll just add more time," that somehow it's just going to happen like that. You're talking about highly, highly complex and organized structures. You could have a gazillion years. It really doesn't matter. It's just not going to happen. It's not possible. It's not possible for things to just come together in such complex systems. And let's face it, even looking at the human body, you have to, I mean, all you have to do is look at a cell, but even the grouping of cells to make our body, um, what came first? I mean, you need an entire circulatory system to function in the body and to keep the body alive. Um, did you start out with, because again, evolution doesn't anticipate anything. It doesn't anticipate a nanosecond in the future. Okay. So it's not like, it developed a heart because it knew it needed blood. It doesn't know anything. There's no intelligence. So a heart's a pump. I mean, you use the pump to pump blood. Why do you even need blood? Where did the blood come from? How did blood develop? Blood is complex. Believe me, I know I have a genetic anemia because of my ancestry from Sicily. So, you know, um, there's um, there's some pretty complex things that go on just in blood, and people have a tendency to just think on such a high level on this stuff. They miss the detail that's necessary. Designed organisms, which are highly complex, can't be reverse engineered. In other words, they're irreducibly complex. You can only back down to a certain point, and then you can't go any um, below that point. So, in the sense of irreducible complexity, you can't take a cell certainly and just start taking things away from it, and then all of a sudden it will just continue to function in any way. Um, just doesn't work. Simple designs um, are irreducibly complex, how much more tremendously complex biological cells. If irreducible complexity is associated with simple designs, now when you get more complex, and I'll show you what I mean by simple. So here's an irreducibly complex design. So this mousetrap, um, it only has 4 pieces to it, and you take one piece away, it's not going to work. Now, sure, will it work for a tie clip? I've seen that tried in the Dover court case, but that was ridiculous, and it was made in front of people that obviously didn't understand science, and apparently even the guy that put it on as a tie clip, because the tie clip was not going to help it to catch mice. See, this is a mouse trap. It's not a tie clip. It's not something else. And it doesn't, it was never going to evolve into a mouse trap. And it was never going to catch a mouse because somebody has to set it. I don't think that people, he pulled kind of the hand is quicker than the eye, and a little magician's trick on an ignorant audience, and that's really what happened there. But this requires a designer has a purposeful thought, and all parts are needed in order to catch mice, not to be used as a tie clip. Your car is irreducibly complex, right?
Michael Behe has devoted his career to the study of the design and operation of the cell. He has also written extensively on the biochemical challenge to evolution.
Most people have no idea of how small and complex cells are. A typical cell from you or me, called a eukaryotic cell, is probably 1/10 of the size of the head of a pin. And yet in that single cell, there are about 3 billion units of DNA making out the chromosomes. And those 3 billion units make the molecular machines of the cell, literally machines that make the cell work.
With computer animation, we can enter the cell. Here, the staggering complexity of its molecular machinery is clearly seen.
It's like going into an automobile factory. The factory has a large number of machines. The parts have to fit together in very specific ways to do their jobs, and if things go wrong, the cell is in big trouble. And just one cell is enormously complex, but humans, you and I, are made from trillions of cells, and those trillions of cells have to fit together in the right way and do their own job. Darwinism was a lot more plausible when we were thinking about globs of protoplasm than it is when we're thinking about molecular machines.
Each of these biochemical machines is a masterpiece of engineering and nanotechnology. They are essential to functions as vital and diverse as vision, photosynthesis, and the production of energy in the cell. Michael Behe has studied several of these machines, including the flagellum, a remarkable rotary motor.
I remember the first time I looked in a biochemistry textbook and I saw a drawing of something called the bacterial flagellum with all of its parts in all of its glory. It's had a propeller and the hook region and the drive shaft and the motor. And I looked at that and I said, that's an outboard motor. That's designed. That's no chance assemblage of parts.
And certainly, it is irreducibly complex. You can't start taking pieces away and have it work. This is the flagellum here.
In Darwin's Black Box in 1996, Behe spotlighted and made famous a number of really interesting discoveries that had been occurring in biochemistry and cell biology over the last 2 or 3 decades. And what biologists, molecular biologists, cell biologists, microbiologists have been discovering is that at the level of individual cells, there are little tiny examples of nanotechnology, little tiny machines at work. The flagellar motor is the one that Behe made most famous. It's a rotary engine that powers a whip-like tail, a protein tail that functions like a propeller, and it moves the bacterium through liquid, enabling the bacterium to essentially track down its food supply. And this little machine includes a rotor, a stator, a drive shaft, a U-joint, bushings, bearings, and a whip-like tail that functions like a propeller. And the machine in some bacterial systems turns at 100,000 RPMs in one direction and can reverse direction on a quarter of a turn and turn 100,000 RPM in the other direction.
And bacterial flagellum is a true nanomachine, about 40 nanometers in size. It's amazing. I mean, E. coli, Salmonella, which are kind of our model systems for the bacterial flagellum, can propel a cell about 20 lengths per second through a very viscous medium like water to these organisms. And you extrapolate that to human scale. 20 body lengths per second, 6-foot person, times 20, 120 feet per second. Mark Spitz or Phelps would be setting records with this type of propulsion.
It's hardwired into a signal transduction circuit that allows the bacterium to sense changes in the sugar gradient in the surrounding liquid.
This signal transduction system is actually a short-term memory system where the cell is, if it's going in the direction of an attractant, a nutrient that it can use to metabolize, it follows that chemical gradient. If it's a repellent, it will sense that and move in the opposite direction. So it's more than just this engine.
It's an extraordinary piece of nanotechnology. It's high tech in low life. And so just by spotlighting these extraordinary pieces of nanotechnology inside cells, and the flagellar motor wasn't the only one by any means, Behe, in a sense, opened up a window for people. He opened up the black box of the inner workings of the cell and said, look, this is much more complex than anything that the early evolutionary biologists had envisioned. Darwin knew nothing of this type of nanotechnology in cells, and at the very least we've got to come up with an explanation for this.
And I think the explanation is clear. It certainly didn't get there on its own. You cannot have this kind of complexity develop just by accident. So that's Darwin's Black Box that was put out many, many years ago. Interesting book. Quote from it, no one at Harvard University, no one at the National Institutes of Health, no member of the National Academy of Sciences, no Nobel Prize winner, no one at all can give a detailed account of how the cilium or vision or blood clotting or any complex biochemical process might have developed in a Darwinian fashion. Other examples abound, including aspects of DNA replication, electron transport, telomere synthesis, photosynthesis, transcription regulation, and more. So that's just one of his quotes. It's my favorite right here.
Cells are full of specialized components that perform functions vital to their existence. But how do these components get to the right locations inside the cell to perform their functions? For larger components, a transportation system is needed. Meet the kinesin. Masterpieces of microengineering, kinesins are miniature motorized machines that carry cargo from one part of the cell to another, walking along self-assembling highways called microtubules. Known as the workhorses of the cell, kinesins have 2 feet, or globular heads, that literally walk 1 foot over another along the microtubule, pulling their cargo to its destination. Each foot possesses two special locations called binding sites that interact with other molecules. One site attaches to the microtubule and the other binds with ATP, the energy molecule of the cell. When one foot binds with ATP and uses its energy, the foot flips over, resulting in the walking motion. Each foot has a short neck which is connected to a strand of a long coiled stalk. At the end of the stalk is a fan-shaped tail which holds tightly to the cargo being transported. Kinesins can carry cargo that are many times their own size. Sometimes a kinesin is in danger of getting stuck on the microtubule highway because of blockages caused by other cellular components. To get around such obstacles, multiple motor proteins may be used to carry a single piece of cargo, together providing enough force to break free. Kinesins typically walk away from the center of the cell and toward the cell's periphery. The kinesin's 2 feet work together efficiently, with one foot holding fast to the microtubule, while the other releases itself and takes a step forward. This coordinated stepwise movement allows kinesin motors to walk as many as 100 steps per second, moving about 8 nanometers with each step. When not carrying cargo, kinesins can shift to energy-saving mode to conserve fuel until their next job. The kinesin plays a vital role in many cellular processes, not just transporting materials, but also aiding cell replication. The walking kinesin molecular machine, another example of intelligent design.
Is that phenomenal or what? Every time I watch that, it just blows my mind. It's walking on a tubular highway that is made as it goes. How does it know where to go, what to do? I mean, and then um, it goes into an energy saving mode. I mean, this is happening in all of our cells. This little kinesin is what transports stuff across the cell. It's just unbelievable. This is not like um, the complexity here is unbelievable. This it's just phenomenal. I don't know honestly how people can know that this exists, be honest about science, and say, oh yeah, well it just there was enough time so it evolved. No, it's not going to happen. Uh, it's not going to happen at all. It's just phenomenal. So we'll look at one more atomic structure, and then we'll end it, and then pick it up next week with some of the other ones. Since Darwin assumed the cell was simple, and he was very mistaken, as we saw, the atomic particles that make up the cell reveal a tremendous degree of design and complexity. So you're talking about, uh, the periodic table, the basic elements. Atoms are organized and powerful, and there's no explanation for why they are stable based on natural reactions of electrons and protons. In other words, it's kind of like magnets. When you have all the positive ends, you try to touch them together, they repel. You have to have positive and negative, and then they'll connect together. Um, and it's the electrons that if they're going around the nucleus of an atom, and in doing that, they should actually just try to get away from each other, but they don't. They're held together. Um, they're either trying to repel each other or collapse on each other based on like charges or, you know, uh, positive and negative charges. They will try to collapse towards each other. Um, but either way, um, this complexity, this is what makes up cells, and the cells make life, or they make us. And then nobody really knows what life is. God gives life, but these are the things that demonstrate that evolution not only is false, it's not possible. There's a difference between, something. Is it actually possible? Um, is it even plausible? Right? Um, See, evolution, it's not even possible. Uh, Honestly, I feel bad for people that say, "Oh, it's just a fact." That's just, that's become a slogan among people that either are atheists that don't want to admit that God exists, or others that somehow feel that um, even some Christians will believe in evolution because they think it's more scientific. Um, Let me tell you, if God used evolution, it still has to function, it still has to work. And here's the irony, and this always gets me. Theistic evolutionists want to believe in evolution because they feel that it is more scientific. But here's the problem. They're actually creating a God of the gaps because evolution provides no evidence for it to take place. And then that means that God has to do these little miraculous things to make things happen that nobody actually sees. And so, you have God behind the scenes, um, filling in the gaps because there is no connection in the evolutionary model. It's all just perception and storytelling. So, um, theistic evolution is actually not only, in my opinion, dishonoring to God, but shows really the least scientific position possible. Obviously, I believe that God created everything. And I think if you work from effect back to cause, like we have to in everything, and understanding the law of causality, um, you're not going to find any evolutionary model that will work. None, non-existent. Um, and look, please, don't leave comments and don't make posts that just tell me I'm stupid and I don't understand it and all that stuff because um, I will, in the next part, I'll show you what um, evolutionary scientists have to say about it, and they just contradict among themselves. Not everybody has the same view, and to take the assumption that evolution just happens, which has been stated by so many. Well, it just happens. I mean, we know that now. It's not true. And there's nobody that can actually provide evidence. Scientists that live in the scientific world doing experiments, they can't provide evidence. They can talk about it. They can say, "Oh, well, we believe this, and it looks like this may connect here, and this and that, and everything," but nobody has any evidence. It never have, and it's not going to happen in the future. So, anyways, we'll pick up next week. We'll get into abiogenesis, which is obviously impossible, um, and we'll develop that a bit, and then we'll move along in our outline. So, until then, may God richly bless you as you continue to study His Word. And if you're a Christian, and even if you're not, read the beginnings of Genesis and see how that makes sense. Because I think you'll find that the first 11 chapters of Genesis provide a world history, though doesn't provide every single thing to be known, is is corroborated um, by uh, prophecy. It's corroborated by archaeology, the transmission of Old Testament documents, the historicity of those documents, and secular sources, as we see and what we know today in the development of ancient history, how things developed, how peoples developed, where they went, and everything else. And only Genesis provides that for us. So, anyways, we'll talk about this stuff a little more next week. Until then, God bless you.